Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the show. This is Free Mind Podcast with your host, Dave Hurt. And got a good show lined up for you guys tonight. Or I guess this morning, whenever you're listening to it. It could be any time of day. But I am recording at night, and I wanted to start off with a funny memory that popped up that reminded me kind of the fact that so much stuff has transpired. So many crazy things in the last couple of years that you forget. You forget about some of this stuff. And I had a memory pop up on my, I think my Facebook or whatever, one of those platforms where I had shared a little message here. I want to read it to you guys. Yeah, it was my Facebook memories. It says, on this day 2 years ago, Joe Biden actually called a voter in Iowa fat and challenged him to a push-up contest. Sometimes I wonder if this is all a dream. That actually happened, folks. I don't know if you were following everything very closely back then, but Joe Biden did indeed call a guy fat, challenge him to a push-up contest, and then also called him old. And this was a potential voter. A lot of people forget some of this crazy stuff that went down during the primary, and Biden said dog-faced pony soldier, called somebody a dog-faced pony soldier. He of course did the you ain't black thing. I mean, there were just so many different instances, but if I can dig up the clip, I'll go ahead and play it right now because I want you guys to hear this because it was hilarious. I mean, this guy, the gentleman is large. He's a rotund individual, but the fact that Joe Biden just straight up called him fat, and he didn't call him fat like you are fat. He called him fat like his name was fat. He was like, look, fat. So just absolutely crazy stuff. And I couldn't believe this was 2 years ago. And I couldn't believe, honestly, that I had forgotten that it happened. So anyway, here you go. Here goes the clip of Joe Biden calling a potential voter fat, challenging him to a push-up contest, and then calling him old.
I know more than most people know, and I can get things done. That's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do. Let's do my push-ups. Number two, no one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion. And no one has ever said it. Not
I
one.
didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
That's what I hear on MSNBC.
You don't hear that in MSNBC. You did not hear that. But you heard. Look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man.
No, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do. But look, Fat, look, here's the deal. Here's the deal.
It looks like you don't have any more backbone than Trump does.
Any other questions?
So yeah, that happened, and just felt like sharing that with you guys because it's been a crazy ride. It's been wild getting here. Hard to believe that was 2 years ago. And it's been that long since we had the Democrat primary and everything else. So Trevor Noah is in the news, not favorably. I wanted to talk about this because it's kind of a breath of fresh air, to be quite honest, to see someone on the left calling out Big Pharma, which the fact that I'm even saying that, like it's an odd thing, like someone on the left is calling out Big Pharma, because historically or traditionally, folks on the left would typically be opposed to big corporations and big business and especially big pharma. But of course, these days, up is down and down is up. So it's odd for someone on the left to call out big pharma. And the way he did this was in the context of the vaccines, of course, which are in front and center in the discourse every single day in various capacities. Right now, it's because of the Omicron variant, and this is from the Daily Beast. My gosh, this is from the New York Post. So here's the headline. Daily Show host Trevor Noah blasted for knocking Moderna CEO's vaccine push. Okay, so basically, to paraphrase, what Trevor was getting at was saying, hey, do you think that the CEO of a vaccine company is the best person to trust with advice as to whether we need more of the vaccine. A little bit of a conflict of interest there. This guy stands to profit quite a bit from this. And it's a very reasonable thing to say. However, it's not reasonable these days in the eyes of those on the far left. So the CEO of Moderna, Stefan Bancel, and I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, so I apologize in advance to anyone who's offended by my inability to pronounce that name, he's the guy that Noah was questioning, and this is what he said. He said on the one, and this is from the New York Post. On the one hand, almost all the Omicron cases have been mild so far, the 37-year-old host began in a clip shared to social media. But on the other hand, the guy who stands to gain millions of dollars from new vaccines says we need new vaccines, So, and then as a parody of the CEO of Moderna, Noah mocked, if we don't make a new vaccine, this disease could be with us forever. Sorry, I was thinking of something else. And that's pretty good. You got to give credit where credit's due. That was pretty clever. So that's what Trevor did. He's essentially stating the obvious here, that the CEO of a company that makes vaccines probably has a slight conflict of interest in regards to recommending vaccines to people. And of course, he's been castigated by this or for this. And then, the thing that always gets me is just the sheer vitriol that people spew. So emotional, so reactionary. Here's just one response to this thing, and I hate pop-ups. Everybody hates pop-ups. I don't know why they still exist. So, and this is from Raphael Shimonov. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong there, buddy. To all the COVIDiots who think this means Trevor Noah has joined your death cult, you can be suspicious of Big Pharma and believe in vaccines and science, just like you can be suspicious of Big Tech while using your phone to read this. I don't think anybody's levering that you can't be suspicious of Big Pharma and also believe in vaccines. But one thing that's funny is the way they banty about the word science as though it is a religion. I believe in science. Science is ever-changing. It's dynamic. It's a process. And it's very weird to hear people who, I guess, just probably aren't educated enough to understand the scientific process and to know that you don't say things like that, especially things like, I represent science, as Fauci said, or I am science, or, I believe in science. You can believe in the process, but science isn't some immutable monolith that you just believe in. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of finding out answers. And one important aspect of it is falsifiability. That's one of the key tenets, and something that you have to get used to very quickly as a scientist, is that you're wrong more than you're right. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You test ideas, you bring up hypotheses, and you test them out. You share ideas with one another. So again, this is just another example of a closed-minded person. I don't know anything about this individual based off of this one tweet. He doesn't seem to be highly intelligent, or at least in the context of science and what that actually means. But anyway, people are being quite reactionary in response to Trevor Noah, essentially just saying that there might be a conflict of interest if the CEO of a pharma company is pushing a vaccine on people because he stands to profit off of it. So anyway, that's something that's happening kind of out there in the zeitgeist. And it's just one of these examples of where those on the far left, and I would consider Trevor to be pretty far left. There's certainly those who are a lot further. He does seem to be pretty level-headed and reasonable in a lot of ways. But it's just this example, again, of one little thing, and they eat their own. They go after you. They attack you. They blast you. And this, again, is why I try to push this message of we can disagree and still be friends. I mean, you are not going to find a single human on this planet that you agree with in every regard on everything. And you don't have to attack someone just for having an opposing idea to your own as though they have personally attacked you. You are not your ideas. Ideas come and go. They change. If you're a thinking human, presumably you have changed your mind sometimes. And if you start treating your ideas like they're again, to use the term immutable, things that are attached to you and you take offense to them being challenged, then this is a problem. And it's honestly not a very mature way to conduct yourself as a thinking adult. So again, this is the kind of stuff you see, though, especially from these folks on the far left who just eat their own constantly, change the goalpost, change the standard. And I hate to see it. I honestly do. I really do hate to see it, because a lot of my colleagues, former colleagues, folks I worked with in labs and stuff, I see them succumbing to it. And these are otherwise pretty rational, reasonable humans as I remember them. So at any rate, Trevor Noah, hang in there, and good for you for, I don't know, stating the obvious, I guess, which is a crime these days, a thought crime. So also in the news, the Jussie Smollett trial is ongoing. A couple of things have come to light here. One big one is that Don Lemon apparently texted Jussie while the investigation was ongoing and was kind of giving him a heads up that the Chicago police didn't believe him. So it's like an ongoing theme for folks over at CNN. They just can't get this whole journalistic integrity thing down. They continually just toss ethics aside. And here's another example. Don Lemon giving Jussie Smollett a heads up that the cops didn't believe his account of the attack. This is from the Daily Mail. The headline is, Jussie Smollett reveals CNN's Don Lemon warned him via text in 2019 that cops didn't believe his account of attack. Host is accused of unethical behavior just days after Chris Cuomo was fired for helping his brother fight sex pest claims. Yes, that is correct. We just had Chris Cuomo go down, and now we have Don Lemon basically sacrificing his ethics as well. But this isn't the first time Don Lemon has done something questionable. Of course, you guys probably are familiar with the story of him swiping his finger on his genitalia and then swiping them across the lip or mustache or whatever right under the nose of a bartender. That's an ongoing case. I think that the bartender is trying to bring charges against him for that. So, this is not an ethical human being. I mean, clearly. Which is unfortunate, because you would like those representing journalism and the news to at least, as sort of a starting point, have some ethics. But nonetheless, he gave Jussie a heads up, texted him, and let him know that essentially the police weren't believing his story. It says Lemon Smollett testified. Again, this is from the Daily Mail. Told him that he had been informed by a Chicago police officer of the doubt. If true, it signals a huge conflict of interest for Lemon, a journalist, seemingly giving a suspect a head start. And this is what ends up happening when you have journalists who are not really journalists. They're activists, they're propagandists, they're certainly highly biased. I don't think they can even, they certainly can't hide that anymore, which makes it even more hilarious that they try to pretend as though they are. But when you cross over that line of just finding out facts and reporting facts and actually being bought into a narrative, being bought into things going a specific way in the world, you end up doing things like this. And here we have Don Lemon giving Jussie a heads up, texting him, and again, this is an issue. This is an issue of journalistic integrity, and we just had Chris Cuomo do the same thing. So anyway, that's going on. We'll see what happens with that. Would have never thought that Cuomo would have gone down the way it did. So who knows what will happen with Don Lemon. I think a lot of it has to do with the changing of ownership and management over there at CNN. Of course, Jeff Zucker, the CEO, is on his way out, and I think a lot of changes are happening. This, of course, is after the largest stakeholder in Discovery, the new parent company of CNN, has said that he wants to bring real journalism back to CNN again. So we'll see. Here's what I was talking about. This is still on the Daily Mail. It says Lemon is also being sued by a bartender in the Hamptons for an alleged incident in the summer of 2018. The bartender says Lemon, who is openly gay, rubbed his own genitals and then put his fingers in his face. So that is utterly disgusting. Absolutely gross. And just, ugh. Ugh. So, Jussie Smollett. What else? There was something else I wanted to tell you guys. Oh, yeah. So, there's so many questions surrounding this whole scenario. And now you don't even hear the narrative of it was two Trump supporters and they were wearing MAGA hats and they yelled, "This is MAGA country," and all that stuff. You guys remember when that was the story? Remember that? Well, apparently that's not it anymore. Now it's the Osendero brothers that he's blaming for this. So already he's changed his story completely. He's clearly lied at least once, whether that was the story or this is the story, or he's lied about both, which is likely to be the case. But anyway, he is now, to account for how the Osendero brothers knew where to find him in the middle of the night, because that was a big question, and Jussie took the stand, apparently. We don't have video of any of this, unfortunately. They didn't let the media record video in the trial. But the reason Jussie said they knew where to find him was because they had told him to go out that night and buy 4 eggs to eat for his health and exercise plan. And that's... I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Nothing surprises me anymore, but apparently, and remember, he also went and got Subway, so I guess he was doing a cheat on his plan or something, as well as going out at like 1 a.m. in the freezing cold in Chicago to buy 4 eggs from Walgreens. So that was their diabolical scheme. They told him to go get some eggs, and because they knew where he would go to buy his eggs, that's how they knew where to find him. So clearly his whole testimony is just crumbling. It's changed. He's so full of it. And I think it's going to result in some sort of conviction. I don't know what. I think that it's a tough one because he's a celebrity. So I feel as though they're going to be lenient on him, but also this is very serious stuff. I mean, the guy faked a hate crime. He faked a racially motivated hate crime. And things like that, especially when you're a high-profile individual, they fuel divisiveness in society. So this didn't occur in a bubble. It caused reverberations throughout the bedrock of our society, and there are consequences when you're a high-profile public figure like that, sowing seeds of discontent and keeping the racism narrative alive. So, hopefully they do reprimand him in some capacity for this. It was a serious thing. I mean, his career, I think, is over. It's destroyed. He's not going to get any more acting gigs. If he does, I can't imagine they would be good ones. But still, this was criminal. It's pretty disgusting, abhorrent behavior, but kind of funny to look at some of the aspects of his reasoning as to why it all went down and how it all went down. So that's the latest in the Smollett case, and be careful when you guys go out to buy 4 eggs at 1 a.m. in the middle of the winter. You never know. You might run into some MAGA Nigerians. And I don't know if it's Nigeria. I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know they're from Africa. So anyway, just crazy stuff. I already mentioned Chris Cuomo. So I think the last time I talked about him on here, he had been suspended. He is now officially fired. So my understanding is this all sort of unraveled after he was suspended. CNN then hired legal counsel to kind of look at everything. And apparently there's a lot more to it. There was some pretty I don't know the best way to put it. He was doing some pretty sketchy stuff. I'll put it that way. As far as using his connections to try and get dirt on his brother's accusers, and then just taking advantage of his resources as a journalist to basically help his brother in this sexual assault debacle that he's found himself in. My guess is there's even more to it than that. I mean, for them to just immediately fire him, like just to say, nope, he's fired effective immediately. It has to be a lot more. I mean, they brought Jeffrey Toobin back after whacking off on Zoom. So my guess is there's some pretty gross stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not even privy to yet. Of course, we have heard that there was yet another Me Too case against Chris. So we all know of the incident where he went up and grabbed it or slapped his boss's butt at a company party in front of her husband. Apparently there's more. He's done more, which doesn't surprise you when you consider the fact that his brother is a disgusting sexual assaulter. And you know, it's not unlikely that he would have done it more than once himself, since we already know he's done it once. Just gross humans, both of them, just terrible, gross humans. And it really comes down to this sense of entitlement, this abuse of power. They are, you know, one of those families. Their father was, I believe, the governor of New York. And this is what happens when you get these entitled guys who feel as though they can't be touched, rather, they're above the law. Well, guess what? They're not. So CNN has fired him, and now apparently Chris is suing CNN for what's left on his contract, which apparently is at least $18 million. This is from the New York Post, by the way. The headline is Chris Cuomo prepping to sue CNN for more than $18 million over contract. So Cuomo is 51. I didn't even realize he's that old. How old is Andrew then? I guess he's in his 60s. Says Cuomo, 51, has hired lawyers and is preparing to file the lawsuit over the remainder of the 4-year contract he signed last year, after a bitter back and forth about what the network knew of his secret efforts to aid his embattled brother, then Governor Andrew Cuomo, said sources familiar with the matter. This is always kind of, I hate that, right? And I understand you can't expose your sources, but gosh, these days I'm so skeptical of everything in the media. Not that I'm skeptical of this in particular, but that whole like sources, quote unquote, familiar with the matter. You just got to trust what they say, which these days, if anything, we've seen evidence to the contrary as to whether they can be trusted. And when I say they, I just mean corporate media in general. His contract was reportedly worth $6 million annually, leaving between $18 and $20 million that would be owed, sources said, adding that Chris would also likely seek damages. Give me a break. A CNN insider has said that they have no intention of paying Chris a penny. If he gets a settlement, there would be uproar, the source added. Okay. Well, so that's happening. Apparently, so today is Tuesday, the 7th. Chris was fired on Saturday, just 4 days after he was suspended. So it didn't take long. Again, they came across more stuff, clearly. So here's a little more color on that. So it says, he was let go Saturday over information contained in a trove of documents released by State Attorney General Letitia James from her investigation into the sexual harassment allegations that forced Andrew Cuomo to resign in August. Okay, so that's what it's coming from. These new documents that have been released. I wonder where I can access those documents. Anyway, so Chris is gone completely for good. And now we have Don Lemon, who's violating ethics and putting his ball sweat on a guy's face. So who knows? Who knows if CNN's going to have anybody left after all of this? It all started with Jeff Toobin, right? I mean, it's amazing that they brought him back. He was literally whacking off on Zoom. And they just suspended him for a few months, and he came back. And it's just every time I see the guy on air, I cannot help but just laugh. He's just there, just being serious, acting like nothing happened. It's amazing. These people are amazing. So, yeah, that's what is popping off over at my favorite network, CNN. Oh, let's see. There's something here about Jeff Zucker, though. Let's see. On Sunday, a spokesman for Chris Cuomo told the Wall Street Journal that CNN President Jeff Zucker knew about the details of Mr. Cuomo's support for his brother. I mean, I already said this before, guys. I'm sure he did. There were no secrets about this, as other individuals besides Mr. Cuomo can attest. All right, so that's interesting. As other individuals. So they're essentially saying in so many words, look, man, there's other people over at CNN that will back us up here. So anyway, oh man, there's some back and forth going on here now. So in response, CNN blasted its former host, saying he has made a number of accusations that are patently false. Dang. This reinforces why he was terminated for violating our standards and practices, as well as his lack of candor. Wow, guys. A CNN insider on Monday also called Cuomo's claims absurd and patently untrue. Starting to heat up, folks. Starting to heat up. I have a feeling this battle is far from over, so I will keep y'all posted. All right, that's enough on the Cuomos, though. Just start to get a bad taste in your mouth after you say their name too much. Another thing. Oh, man. Yeah, this is some craziness right here. This is some craziness. So I have a lot of friends who are Latino, Hispanic, Latina, whatever, and whatever you want to call them. But one thing that remains consistent across all of my friends is that they hate this term LatinX. And I make sure to ask about it because it intrigues me, because it's one of these phenomena. Hold on, let me get a sip of water. It's one of these phenomena that kind of came out of nowhere, and it seems to be espoused for the most part by like middle upper class liberal white people who refuse to allow Hispanic folks to call themselves what they want. Which is ironic because it's essentially being oppressive towards people of color. Although they don't want to be called Latinx, no, we're going to call you Latinx. You just don't know what's best for you, okay? You listen to us. We know better. But what I was going to bring up here is there was a poll that just happened by Democratic Hispanic outreach firm Ben Dixon and Amandi International. And here's what they found. Only 2% of those polled refer to themselves as Latinx, while 68% call themselves Hispanic and 21% favor Latino or Latina to describe their ethnic background. 2% surveyed say that they use Latinx. All right, my friends on the left, my white friends on the left, can you please stop using this word to describe Hispanic or Latino people? Excuse me. They don't like it. They don't want it. Why do you insist on pushing this term on people? Why? And you see it all even in like mainstream political jargon now. You see it in political ads and on all kinds of material put out by the Democrat Party. And it's like, why are you? It's almost like they're trying to lose votes, essentially, because they're like, we know that they don't like to be called this, but we're going to call them this anyway. It's as demeaning and dehumanizing as Biden standing up and playing Despacito, thinking that for whatever reason that's going to land him in favor of the Latino voting bloc, which, by the way, is kind of weird that they treat Latinos or Hispanics as a voting bloc anyway, like they're a monolith, because it's such a diverse group of people. It's such a, like, you have Cubans, you have Puerto Ricans, you have Venezuelans, you have, I mean, it just goes on and on, Mexicans, Dominicans. I mean, it's just such a diverse group of people who have their own views and their own opinions, and it's pretty insulting to call them a word that they don't want to be called. Last time I checked, white people calling a group of people of color a word they don't want to be called is a bad thing, a very bad thing. Because remember, only 2% of them refer to themselves as Latinx. So I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, it's just wild. It's crazy. You know, I would have thought that this poll, it would definitely be a low number, but 2% is, even to me, that was shocking. I thought maybe 5 or something like that, because there are a lot of college age Hispanic people in America, but no, 2%. And I've yet to talk to anybody that I know who's Hispanic or Latino. When I asked that, had I even I try to say either, and I lost my train of thought. Well, A, had even heard of LatinX, or B, definitely didn't use LatinX. So there you go. Just another crazy freaking far left harebrained thing that they've just pulled out of nowhere and just insist on shoving down our throats. Like, we don't want it. They don't want it. Nobody wants it. Can you please just stop? They want their language to be gendered. That is how their language is. And you might not like the fact that it's O and A and it's just two, but that's how their language is. And you need to respect them and stop trying to change a fundamental, foundational aspect of their culture. My God, you guys talk about cultural appropriation and all these things and respecting people of color, yet you create terms that you expect them to use to describe themselves that they don't want to use. That is the ultimate hypocrisy, and it's the ultimate just grotesque display of entitlement and privilege on your part. So, boom, take that. Getting a little fired up here. When I can speak coherently, fumbling over my words a lot tonight. Sleep deprived, guys. I actually am. I'm excited. I'm taking a sleep test tonight. So hopefully I will find out that, I don't know. I guess I'm going to find out that I have sleep apnea and maybe get fitted for a CPAP. And I'm finally admitting defeat because I'm tired of being tired all day. And my buddy Brandon Allen, who I had on the podcast, had great things to say about his CPAP. So I'm going to break down. And I'm doing the sleep test tonight. But anyway, I digress. Last thing I wanted to touch on before we wrap this bad boy up is one of my favorite humans. Just kidding. Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris is, I don't think I've ever brought up Kamala Harris with good news since she's really since she ran in the Democrat primary. But anyway, here's the headline from Daily Mail. Kamala's staff are leaving because they are burned out and they don't want to be permanently branded a, quote, Harris person. Report claims after four aides announced they were leaving in the space of 2 weeks. Man, yeah, things are not looking great over at the Kamala camp. So it is weird to me, though, that the staff are burned out because she doesn't, do anything. So what is she having her staff do? It's kind of weird. So here are the bullet points from the Daily Mail. Vice President Kamala Harris's staff are leaving because they're burned out. Already said that. This is reported originally by Axios. Harris is in the process of losing 4 top staffers, including her chief spokesperson, Symone Sanders. Sanders is getting married next year and was never able to go on a proper tour to sell her book. Oh, you got to sell that book. The book is called No, You Shut Up. It was published in May 2020. So very important there. Peter Vels, Director of Press Operations, and Vince Evans, Deputy Director of the Office of Public Engagement, are also expected to leave. I have heard and I've read a lot that Kamala is basically awful to work for. She's disrespectful. She burns her staff out. She's just an awful boss. And I've seen and heard that from multiple sources, and it just seems to be kind of common knowledge at this point. Even prior to her running in the Democrat primary, she was just always an awful person to work for. So here's a little more from the article. After the already announced departure of Harris's communications director, Ashley Etienne, so I guess that's the 4th one there that we were missing, Politico reported Wednesday that chief spokesperson Symone Sanders is expected to leave. And then, of course, Peter Vels, who we talked about. So everybody's bailing, man. They're all just getting the F out of there. Her approval rating, I don't even know what it is anymore. I think last I checked, it was under 30%, which is, to say abysmal would be an understatement. But there was one really funny as a result of all this, let me see if I can find it. This one dude who works for Kamala made a tweet, and you guys, maybe you've already seen it at this point. It's pretty freaking hilarious. Everybody's laughing about it. Let me see. Kamala staffer tweet loves his job. Something like that. That should pull it up. So, okay, yeah. Oh, boy. Kamala Harris aide mocked for love of job tweet amid turmoil. Okay, so you guys, you know, all this stuff is going down. Everybody's leaving Kamala. 4 people so far. This guy, it was pretty funny because, of course, you know, all the responses go wild. This is from the New York Post. It was the first hit on Google. An aide to Vice President Kamala Harris responded to the exodus of staffers from her office by publicly proclaiming how much he loves his job, only to get roasted online. And he did get roasted, y'all. Following a blistering report in which Harris was described as a bully who dishes out soul-destroying criticism, David Gins, or Gins, it's Gins, took to Twitter to say he'd never been happier. Hi, my name is David Gins. I work for Vice President Harris on behalf of the American people as Deputy Director for Operations and absolutely love my job, he tweeted Sunday. He added, just thought some of you should know, along with a smiley face emoji. That's another thing, man. What are we, like 12? We have high-level officials using smiley face emojis and stuff and childish language. It's just, I don't know, just weird. Maybe it's a pet peeve of mine. So Gins, whose profile lists previous work for the Georgia Democratic Party, President Biden's 2020 campaign, and the Civis Analytics data firm, also posted a photo of himself sitting stiffly in a jacket and tie behind a desk in an ornate office. Oh my gosh. I'll put the photo up so you guys can see it. But man, what an awkward, weird picture he took. It's all just very odd. But yeah, he got absolutely blasted on Twitter. Of course, the memes started flowing. I'll put some of them up here. The classic, like sitting in the flames, saying "This is fine." The one someone put "Help me" up on the wall on a chalkboard. It's just. They just kept rolling in. Someone replied to his tweet, blink twice if you're in danger. It's just clearly like you can absolutely see where all these people are leaving. And then Kamala being, of course, as they've described her, as being an awful boss, just being like, you're going to tweet this out and you're going to do it now. And this is what you're going to say. Man, oh God, you know what, guys? I hate that I have to laugh at this stuff, but if you don't laugh at this stuff, you'll just go crazy. Again, they said that she provided soul-destroying criticism, and I don't know, maybe some of that is projection because she's getting some pretty soul-destroying criticism of her own from the American people for the lousy job she's doing. Again, I've talked about this before, but what did we expect when we brought someone in who couldn't even fare well in the Democrat primary, didn't even make it to Iowa? Tulsi Gabbard eviscerated her, absolutely destroyed her. She's not a likable person. Her record sucks. Biden just brought her in because of her skin color and her gender. And this is what happens when you make hiring decisions based on those things instead of merit. You end up with this. So I don't even feel bad for laughing at it, for talking about it, because this is what happens. And we know better. We do know better. Biden knew better. But alas, our convictions are weak. We give in and we make poor decisions, and this is where we end up. So there you have it, folks. We started off with candidate Biden calling a potential voter in Iowa fat, challenging him to a push-up contest, and then calling him old. Then we moved on to Trevor Noah, getting pushback for actually being critical of the Moderna CEO, like a normal thinking, logical human would be. Don Lemon texting Jussie Smollett during his ongoing investigation, giving him a heads up that the cops didn't believe him, violating journalistic integrity standards and ethics, which doesn't surprise any of us because Don Lemon also stuck his finger in his crotch and then rubbed it on a man's face. And then Jussie giving the lame excuse that the Osendero brothers told him to go out and get eggs, and that's how they knew where to find him. Cuomo is fired and is now suing for $18 million. That's Chris, a.k.a. Fredo, not Andrew, a.k.a. the former governor who sent grannies to their death. 2% of Latino and Hispanic folks who were surveyed prefer to use the term LatinX because it is made up by crazy lefties who want to change language and force their ideals on people of color because they are oppressors. And then Kamala Harris has staffers leaving like rats on a sinking ship. And this one guy, David Gins, posted a hilarious tweet, basically at gunpoint, it seems, saying that he loves his job. And with that, my friends, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'm going to go home, hook myself up to this device, find out what the heck is going on with my crazy sleep, and hopefully get some remedy from my doctor. Until next time, though, keep your minds free.